Hello and welcome to my show. Could you be more specific? I'm your host, Jonathan Steele, coming to you by the way of the Stay Woke podcast. And on this episode of Could You Be More Specific, I'm going to title it, Is This Award Necessary? Now, I know the other night the VMAs happened, and obviously, a show that a lot of people don't really watch anymore. I think it was the lowest rated I think it's been in its history. I think a lot of the reason why is because I think the mass majority of the public now are kind of over award shows for the most part. They'll either, obviously they'll trend on Twitter and Instagram and so a lot of the ways people are watching these shows are much different. I think just overall, I think it's now becoming just more and more of a disconnect with fans in award shows, because I just think that people are kind of overseeing a majority of people in the entertainment field, a lot of whom are doing very well financially, decide to award each other. And I think that's probably why they've had one of their biggest struggles. I know the biggest takeaway from the other night, I think for the VMAs, was they invited Madonna for some reason to say some words about Aretha Franklin. And I know it was a pretty big fallout over that. I know she got Donkey of the Day by the Breakfast Club and Charlemagne, but apparently Madonna's people had claimed that they just wanted her to go out and say a few words. And I'm thinking like, well, you could have got someone else that would have better fit the temperature of the room to honor Aretha Franklin. You couldn't get Mary J. Blige or Queen Latifah or someone like a Shaka Khan or a Patti LaBelle or Gladys Knight. I know a lot of the young generation may not know who, probably, Patti LaBelle is. If they don't, then that's just, whatever on them. But you could have got someone like that. Aretha Franklin has done too much for this business to just have someone randomly come out who genre-wise, musically has nothing to do with her and say a few words about her. And, they did this, a couple years ago with Prince when they did a thing and Madonna was for that. I'm like, why do you want to put someone like her in the Prince category? She doesn't fit. Just get someone like, Bruno Mars and Maxwell and Janelle Monáe, someone that vocally can sing his songs and celebrate them. So that was, probably one of the bigger takeaways, because it turned into more of a thing about Madonna. And then again, I think just overall with the VMAs, it's just they don't play music videos like a lot of these shows. Like the only award show worth watching right now is the BET Awards. It's actually a fun show. The rest of them, it's almost getting to the point where it's like it's pointless. It kind of reminds me of there was an award honoree thing that HBO was doing, and they had Jerry Seinfeld there, and they had Gary Shandling and Chris Rock, and they're honoring them. And Jerry Seinfeld gets up and he was talking about how pointless and dumb awards are. And he was like, okay, I get in so many words, paraphrasing, he's like, you get, one rich snob person to award another rich snob person, and to pat each other on the backs and tell each other how great they are. And then, they're able to feel, good about themselves. And he was like, they're stupid. And he's being honored that night, and he's saying they're stupid. And, Chris Rock and Gary Shandling and those guys are laughing. But, Jerry Seinfeld already, made another point where he's saying it's like a car dealer showing he won some sort of like Blue Diamond Award for being a top seller in cars. He's like, okay, what does that do? Now, granted, does that mean that, human beings don't need to be recognized for their works? Obviously, yes. Does it help to a certain degree? Yeah. But it's something that I think, we have to kind of start to look at and reevaluate, and should it be tempered? Because it's like nowadays, it's like we're to the point where, because we're in this participation trophy era, everybody has to be acknowledged all the time. There's just no point. It's to the point where now, you got kids playing games with no winner because no one wants to be disappointed. And I'm saying all that to say, for an example, if the perception at your award show that Nicki Minaj won an award because she was there, and she won in a category where no one legitimately thinks that she beat Drake God's Plan or Beyonce and Jay-Z's song together or J. Cole. Now, the Migos was technically there. They were there. But I don't think they were going to beat either one of those people. So they gave it to Nicki Minaj. And it works because from a rating standpoint, she's going to go up there. She's going to, say something about herself and, and she's going to, mention her barbs and her being recognized and how people are attacking her and all that type of stuff. And that's fine. But it's just, to give the award, if that's the perception of your award show, you're giving it to people who are there, then your award really doesn't matter. But this has been happening now for the longest of times with award shows. And I know Drake has stated that beforehand, saying why would I take out time out of my schedule to perform for free to sell your award show? I don't care about this stuff. He said the same thing about Beyonce when she performed Pregnant for Lemonade at the Grammys. And she should have won Album of the Year. If she didn't win that, Drake could have easily won that. But they gave it to Adele. And no one talks about that album like that. It was a good album. Adele makes good music. But to say her album was Album of the Year, and give it up to Beyonce, she's classy. She's not going to, overreact. Listen, I mean, you saw how she looked when, Kanye did what he did with Taylor Swift. Beyonce's already at the mountaintop, so she's not going to flip out about not having more people tell them how much they love her. But I'm just using that as an example to say, overall, the VMAs are kind of like a microcosm to me of our society, of so many award shows, so many people want to be recognized all the time. It's almost as much, it's very similar to what we have going on right now with the Oscars and them creating a popular movie category. Because they know the Midwest and the South is checked out on the Oscars, because that's the perception of it, is a bunch of, really rich, good-looking people more often than not there to honor themselves. And that's fine. I understand it from the artistic standpoint of it. You want to honor the people that help make the film. So you're honoring production designers and costume design and sound effects. All those departments help make film and TV, and they're all necessary. And it's nice that they get recognized and appreciated, because they're not gonna be on, covers of magazines and stuff like that. So I do get that, but I do look at it overall, just in, when we start talking about award shows and people getting recognized, I do look at it through that kind of lens. And so those are just some of the things I've noticed over the course of time, is that people are just kind of checked out on these award shows. And I know for a lot of them, they used to have artists that would schedule around being there. And now it's just to the point where it's man, I'd rather book a show. What am I doing here? Why am I performing for free to honor this award show? Most of the artists don't go to these things now anyway. They don't really care. It was similar to Donald Glover. Adam Levine was more so upset about Donald Glover until he found out that he was nominated for Video of the Year. He at one point thought he wasn't. And he says, I know Donald Glover doesn't care about it. And I know he won some awards the other night. I don't think he was there. I didn't see anything with him being there. But Donald Glover's another one of those type people that if he won an award right now, you don't mind seeing him win something, because you can really tell he doesn't care. He's just going to be respectful and humble enough to just accept the honor and thank the people that helped create a project with them and move on. For people like Nicki Minaj and artists of that ilk, they want you to celebrate them, and they want you to kind of give them that kind of praise. And that's fine too. I heard her clip, talking about Travis Scott and what she said about him, and which was bizarre, because, if you really had a phone conversation with him where you're saying he actually told you that his album really wasn't number one, when your label, like a lot of labels, buys in advance print and merch albums to set it up, but because you thought that you were going to beat him easily. You didn't do that in advance until you got your midweek projections, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, he used his girlfriend and his baby to sell records, which I don't know why you bring a kid into it. I still don't get that, and that's another thing about these award shows and just what it does to people in general, especially in regards to her. You come across really not that likable. Like, who wants to root for you? Even if you're talented. Like, if someone doesn't really care, it's like no one's rooting for you to fail. But it's like if someone hears that, like, oh, this did good, but it didn't do, like, super great. It's like, oh, okay. Like, no one's losing sleep that Nicki Minaj sold 185,000 copies of a record. And she's going to go on tour, and she's going to make money, and that's fine. I mean, she's a successful artist, and that you can't take away from her. But when I heard a clip about Charlemagne and what she was going to say about him, and then you say you're God-fearing, and then you interject God-fearing with you're just sitting up laughing and, doing all the extra stuff that you be talking about, it just sounds like you're all over the place for the most part. And it kind of goes back to that. Also, another thing that I picked up on the award show where Tiffany Haddish and Kevin Hart, they come out there, they're comedians, they're telling jokes, and Tiffany Haddish tells a joke that with the girl from Fifth Harmony, that Camille girl, and that got taken seriously. It's like, this just lets you know how checked out most of these people are. And is that you've made this much money that you don't have no sense of humor, like whatsoever. And it further reinforces the fact of why a lot of people don't really check for these award shows anymore, and kind of don't look at celebrity the way it used to be looked at. It's easy to root for The Rock. It's easy to root for Will Smith. It's easy to root for Halle Berry. Like, Halle Berry, if you look at her and her career, as big of a figure she's still been able to be extremely likable and easy to root for. And the crown jewel of that is Beyonce. Beyonce is at the apex of any form of fame, and she's still been able to manage to maintain a humility and a dignity and a grace to herself, and has been an incredible performer since the beginning of her career, especially now, since being a solo artist when she came out with her album in 2003. So that, those are just some of the things I kind of wanted to talk about with that. I want to thank everyone that's been listening to the show. I'm looking forward to doing some more pods in the future. So definitely also support us and become a patron. I want to thank D for all the work that he's been doing on the show. Definitely like, share, and follow. Again, my name is Jonathan Steele. Thank you for listening. Could you be more specific? Continue to follow our the Stay Woke podcast. And I look forward to talking to you guys real soon. And have a good one.